Hi, welcome to another tip from KansasFisherman.com. One of the most overlooked things is how to put line on a fishing reel. I've seen people do it in all sorts of different ways, shapes, and forms. I want to share with you for just a couple of minutes on the proper way to put new line on a bait casting reel. Now, at first that would seem kind of simple, right? And frankly, it is, as long as you abide by a couple of important rules. So let's go through a couple of things. First of all, in today's environment, fishing line is very expensive. And we don't want to buy cheap line, right? Because that's our only connection between us and the fish. So we don't want to skimp on good fishing line. And so because of the cost of fishing line today, I don't own a reel that I don't put backing on first. Every bait casting reel I have, I put what's called backing on there, either cheap line that I'll go buy new, or old line perhaps that comes off of another fishing reel that I'm not using, and I'll fill that spool up to within 100 yards or 125 yards roughly of being completely full. Why do I do that? Because at the end of the day, I'm never going to use line that's buried down in there, 150, 200 yards deep. I'm never going to catch a fish big enough that's going to pull that much line off. And for that reason, unlike a lot of people, I don't worry about tying my backing to my good line with some fancy knot. I just do an overhand, traditional overhand knot, do that a couple of times, clip off the ends, and reel it on slowly to get it started, and away I go. You say, well, why don't I use some fancy line to tie these two together? For the same reason that I said earlier, I'm not expecting to catch any fish. It's going to peel off 125 yards of my fishing line, so I don't really care because it's never going to get that deep into the spool anyway. So number one, I encourage you to put backing on every bait casting reel you have because it's going to save you money. You buy a 250-yard spool of line. Let's say you put 125 yards of new line on your bait casting reel because the rest of the reel is filled with backing. That means you get 2 spools free, or not free, but full from purchasing 1 spool of line. It's just pure economics. Second thing is, I've watched people make this kind of mistake. They'll put this line down on the ground, they'll bring it up, they're standing up above it, for example, and they begin to spool this on. Well, I don't know if you can see it on the video, but what happens is this line has memory to it. This is monofilament, but so it's got quite a bit of memory to it, and what happens is it begins to curl and bunch up already because it's been on that spool a while. Well, just imagine putting all this mess on your bait casting reel, right? Even fluorocarbon will do the same thing. So you say, well, then how am I supposed to do it? Well, the answer is, I want you to take your line and come off the top of the spool onto your reel, okay? I've seen people do it on the bottom. No, because on the bottom you're asking that line to come up and then over and then down onto your bait casting reel, and again you're going to create line twist. The proper way to do it is bring it off the top, over, across, and down onto your fishing reel. For example, this is a spool of line. Bring your line over, across, and into your bait casting reel that way, and you'll eliminate lots and lots of line twists. Now, the other thing you want to do is you want to take a rag or a small towel, and you want to run that line through your fingertips as you put line onto your reel. And I squeeze it very hard because I want that line on there very, very tight. I don't want any loose line underneath where it's going to create problems like backlashes, for example. So I'm putting that line on very, very tight. If you use braid, you have no other choice. You've really got to put it on extremely tight. Otherwise, first cast you make or the first fish you catch and that line bites down into itself, it's going to create all kinds of problems for you. So you want to get this line on tight. The way to do that is to run this line through your hand, through your fingertips. Make sure you use a towel because at the end of the day, understand this stuff is very strong and it will cut you if you try just to run it through your hands. In fact, you couldn't begin to squeeze it tight enough to do it properly. So run it through a towel. Finally, the last thing is don't overfill it and don't underfill it. How far up you fill that spool is very, very important. Now, I suppose you could argue that, if you're a real pro, you could go right to the very tip top of that inner spool right there. But for most of us, we want to get to within about a 1/16 of an inch of being at the top. If you don't get enough on there, it makes casting and winding a lot more difficult. If you get too much on there, you're going to end up getting not only backlashes potentially, but also there are times when the line will actually get in behind the spool and get down into your actual reel. So you don't want to overfill it, but you don't want to underfill it. General rule of thumb, approximately a 1/16 of an inch from the top of the inside of that spool, and that'll give you plenty of line. So put on backing to save you money. Bring the line off the top of the spool onto your bait caster. Always use a towel so you can put it on nice and tight. Don't underfill it, don't overfill it. Take it up to roughly a 1/16 of an inch from the top of that inside spool right there, and you'll never have a problem again with line twists. So I hope that helps. Thanks.